Hello, welcome back to the Evolution with Mac and Jenn podcast. We are so excited to be here today. Today is Father's Day,
Mhm.
and so we're celebrating dads today. We're just really excited to be here. We're going to talk about Mac and his recent trip to California that he just took. He just got back. When did you get back? Last night?
Last night.
It feels like you got back forever ago, a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we always do so much that it just like the time goes by
hmm
quickly, but it feels like we get a lot in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk about Mac's trip to California. I'm very excited. So what were you doing in California?
So what was I doing in California?
Mm-hmm.
So, well, there's a lot of, can you break that down a little? Because there's a lot of what I was doing, what I was doing, why I was doing.
Okay, well, I mean, just why did you go to California?
So I went to California to meet with a bunch of other men that are like me, work on ourselves. We get coaching, we take space and time away from the rest of the craziness that we deal with so that we can focus on us and then look at our situation, kind of where we're at, assess it, and then figure out where we need to go next with the information that we now have.
So you go meet with these men every 3 months.
Yep.
You guys meet in Laguna Beach
Or close to.
or close to. And how long have you been working with this group?
2.5 years with this particular
2.5 years.
group.
How many men do you think were there?
This time about 41.
41 guys.
Yeah. I think there's 80-ish total right now altogether. Like not all of them can make it. Some of them are newer, so they don't really get the same level of invite. This one is actually kind of a invite only type thing. And so there are some that's just their thing. They show up, and then some of us that are more like invited. And so since they first opened up the invitation, I made sure I was there because it's a very important thing for multiple reasons. So
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, I read this quote that I really love, and it says it's like because it can be networking too. It's like personal growth you guys are working on, but it's also like networking and getting to know other guys. And it's like networking isn't just about who you know, it's also about who knows you.
right.
Yeah, I love that. All right, so well, let me think. I there was
I'll just say real quick, Happy Father's Day to all the fathers also from me as well.
Yay. There was a picture that you guys took,
Mhm.
and it looked like you guys were like sitting in rows and everybody had a partner and y'all were just like looking at each other in the picture.
We were discussing.
What were you talking about? I was curious because I didn't ask you. Like
Yeah,
I didn't ask
and
you very many questions about the trip, so I'm just like, I don't really know all that happened on this particular one, but all I know is every time that you go, you come back with new ideas and like feeling super just like energized and you start making changes in our lives.
some not always the easiest. So in that particular scenario, the objective is out. So we sit down often and just kind of go, okay, where am I at in my body? Where am I at spiritually? Where am I at in my business? Where am I at in my relationships? And we just assess it, like where is it actually? And this isn't a group of guys where you can just write down what you want and then throw it out there and they're going to accept it. We're the type of guys that are going to, like, if you bring us some BS, we're going to tell you it's BS and to give us the truth. That's just the standard that's there. So it's like a high ticket, very in depth, and we're all trained to a deep level in order to be able to do this, to understand like, hey, you have to have the courage to spill it right here, or you're just wasting everybody's time. So get the fuck out. That's just kind of how we all show up. We don't want to get lost in a conversation that has no meaning and that has no weight. And so in that particular instance, it's like it's kind of a hard thing to explain because it was a built up to that point.
Mhm.
But essentially, it was what is it that you need to get done, and like what's stopping you or what's holding you back, right?
Mm,
Like let's hear it. Like where this is what I want, this is what I'm going for. Here's the challenges I'm looking at. Right. So whether it's I have no idea how to get there, I'm afraid of this, there's this, or it's just going to be tough, or you know, all the things that life can throw at you. And so you say it to one person for quickly, and then everybody, like one side stands up and moves down, and you say it again to the next person. And what happens is,
mm,
depending on who you're saying it to, and if any of you know me, if you start saying some of the shit that you tell your friends that you get away with, you're not going to get away with it with me. Okay. Just straight up. You instantly know that if you start your drama, speech, blah, 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 in under the environment of I'm looking at you looking for the truth, you're not going to get away with it. So instantly it forces you to own whatever you're about to say. And
mm,
so that's one effect. It's an energetic effect on me if I'm speaking, or on him if I'm listening. And then as you go to say it, you're still like the objective of what you're trying to say, but then you start saying it, and you're probably going to start telling some stories. So for us, it's like, don't tell the story, tell the truth, give the facts, give the details, give the like, let's just boom, 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 boom through it. So as you do it, a lot of times what happen will guys will get clear, like they'll get clarity as they're saying it, because they get different pressures from different situations. They also just kind of, by saying it that many times, like 5 times, you just get clarity by focusing on something over and over and over again, until it's like, oh well, maybe I'll do it this way. And then you got to sit there realizing you just told all these people this story, because it's really all of it's a story. And now it's kind of like, well, what are you going to do about it?
mm,
And we don't really like to, as men, a lot of times say, this is what I'm afraid of. Like this is what's fucking me up. This is where I'm stuck.
mm,
But it's a matter of fact of saying, if you want something, then there's going to be a challenge. If it's different from where you're headed, it's going to be a challenge. It just is what it is. So you need to own it. You need to push through it. Whatever. There's also the thing that I see often, and people will say they will downplay what they want so they don't get the pressure of achieving. So if somebody's thinking, I want to make, like, I want to double my income in the next quarter. If they were to say that, that's heavy. In other words, we're going to come at them. We're going to be like, how the fuck are you going to do that?
mm,
Right? Like, I just want the truth. Like, if you're telling me this, I want to know how you're going to do it, or at least some idea or some direction or something that you could work towards. So if that's the scenario, then you're going to have to, give some example. But some guys, they know the weight is going to come at them. In other words, we're going to question. So they'll downplay it and be like, oh, they really want to double their income, but they're like, oh, if I could increase my income 5%, like that'd be great. Or maybe I should look at some things. And they completely downplay it. It's like, huh? Like, no, dude, like we're all here for a reason, and it's not to play small. You got to get with it. So that was what the reality of that, everybody in a line right there, was under the function of repeating what you're saying over and over under different pressures, and whether it's coming or going, and honing in on what it is that you need to get done.
mm.
So
Awesome. Most of the guys in this group, they are like businessmen, married businessmen, most of
typically,
them,
yep.
right?
Yeah, a few of them might have like a high level job. A lot of entrepreneurs, a few CEOs, um, a lot, there's a couple other coaches in that arena, but all very, high profile dudes,
Yeah,
basically.
this group is not cheap. Is
No,
that right? I don't
no,
really know how much it is. I just know it's not cheap.
no.
And you guys don't just meet 3 times a year. No, every 3 months, so 4 times a year. But you also do
Yeah,
weekly.
so there's my group of guys there's just 6 of us. I'm basically one of 6 that sticks together like a family, right? Like,
So there's like a bunch of guys, but then there's like pods type
we call them chapters.
chapters. And so your
and
chapter,
and it's part of an overall brotherhood.
part of an overhaul, all men though.
Yep. and it's all Christ based. So it's a Christian based organization. There's a few people in there that aren't Christian, but it's typically Christian based. And we go in and kind of usually there's some message because like, if we're doing something and it's not backed by God, why are we doing it? It's like let's not waste our time. Let's know that we're doing something that's going to move us closer to the big picture, as in, a good family, eternal life, that type of thing, doing more of God's will, but still kicking ass in business and life, serving, raising stewarding our kids the right way, taking care of our wives, etc. And so my smaller group of guys, our chapter is a function of the bigger picture, but then we all come together at different times. Like once a year, it's a call to everybody's supposed to be there. Like all the guys come together, and it's three days of going through things.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Should I read my post and then did you read my post?
I think I did, but I was kind of busy when I saw it.
Should I read it and then you maybe can want to respond to it?
Yeah, we
Because
can do that.
like I had like, well, I'll just read the post first.
Okay.
But I said, unpopular opinion. I love it when my husband leaves for a few days every 3 months to meet with other men and focus on his personal growth. Should I keep going? I know that the better my husband is, the better he shows up for me, and that makes me very happy. Many people, especially men, often view things like coaching, therapy, and counseling as signs of weakness or flaws, but it's not weak at all. It's one of the best things we can do, not just for ourselves, but for the people we love. Mac's submission to God first and to this group that he works with gives me great certainty and security as a wife and as a woman. It makes me feel safer to relax and submit to him and his leadership because he's being guided by something bigger than himself. I wish more men understood the power of this. I see so many relationships end because of a man's unwillingness to submit and accept any outside leadership or guidance. A man who has certainty but also knows he doesn't know it all is a powerful, sexy man, and truthfully, I wouldn't have married anyone who didn't understand the importance of personal growth, staying open, and continuous learning, both for himself and for us as a family. Babe, thank you for being an example and for paving the way. I see you. You're amazing, and I love you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So a couple of things I want to touch on because of that is this idea of getting help is weak or guys or whatever, but I'm going to tell you one of the most powerful things a man can do is have the courage to work on himself, to do the shits that are required, and also have the courage to have humility and understanding that you don't know shit. Right? Like you're going to screw something up, and if you're willing, you can actually find places to expose it, deal with it, and be called out and held at a higher standard. And when you do that, you get a much higher level of results. Even and this is also why I teach people as far as like, hey, if you're my client, you need to show up. We have a membership, we have groups. I have high level groups. I also have one-on-one clients. And there's a piece to all this that makes a lot of sense. And then as we grow, I'll bring in the like functions as far as like you need to show up in this place at this time. It just hasn't been the right time yet to do it. So we show up on Zoom calls, which is it still has a very positive effect. But one of the cool things about leaving my work, my home, and going somewhere else far away is it completely disconnects me from those things so I can focus on me. Because even if I'm on Zoom and there's something happening around my house, I like as soon as I'm done, I get up and I go right back to what I'm doing and what actually changed. Like how much thought, how much processing, how much whatever is going to go into that. And then it's kind of up to being held to a standard of if you're going to change or not. And the standard that I'm held to and that I also hold my clients to is the standard of God. What does God say to do? Not what does Mac say to do? What does the world say to do? That's all bullshit. It's what does God actually say to do ultimately. And if you're a man, you're called to produce. If you're a man, you're called to lead your family. If you're a man, you have stewardship over your kids, your wife, and everything, your business, all these different things. And so when that is the standard, you don't have room for anything else. And if you think that you can go through life and do this on your own, I guarantee you're fucked up somewhere. You might be able to crush business and you have no idea what's going on with your kids or your wife. Or let's say you're pretty good with your relationships and everything else, but you're struggling in business. Or you're doing all these things where you think you're doing it right. You're good with you think you're good with your wife, your family, your business, and everything else, but God isn't in your life. And I'm gonna tell you, like, that's one of the worst places to be, even though you might think it feels like the best because it's uncomfortable to change or open up to new things. But I can guarantee that you're asking yourself, how do I get to here? There's this thought in the back of your mind, still asking, how do I get to here? And the answer is always going to be, maybe you should connect more with God, because the path to getting everything is the easiest done through Him. And there's a great, if you look in the Bible and think about Solomon was like one of the richest people ever on the planet, like just total badass. So he builds business, he builds a city, he does all these things and just crushes it. And he's like unfulfilled. So then he's like throws the biggest parties, spends all this money, throws the biggest parties, unfulfilled. He gets all the women, unfulfilled. And he just goes through like picking things off. Try this, try this, try this, try this. And he goes through all this stuff and crushes everything. And at the end, he's like, the only thing that brought me joy was God. That's it. The only thing that truly brought me joy was God. And then once I led from the space of me and God first, and then led my family, then led the next, then led my business, then it was ultimate joy throughout. And there's nothing that touches it. So don't waste your time with everything else.
Yeah, but when you say like God, like God, getting closer to God is the answer,
Mhm.
like that's fine. But even that, if you're doing it alone, like that's a lonely,
That's
hard.
not actually getting closer to God, and God actually calls men to be in brotherhood with each other. Like
Is
there's
there a scripture or verse that says
yes,
that?
there is, but I don't know it off the top of my head.
Because I've actually heard that before, that like that God says like men like
Should be with other men.
should be with other men.
Yeah, like flat out, men should not be alone. Like that's a there's a scripture says man should not be alone. Yes, man should have a wife, and then but on top of that, men should be with men together. And I said this on Facebook once about like there is a call in the Bible as far as saying like you need to repent, and repentance is the form of exposing your bullshit and or your lies or your sins in front of other men, good men. And somebody said, no, that's between me and God. And I was like, and I posted the scripture that said to get together and then expose it. Because what happens when it's between you and God, it's never exposed and you're locked in because you don't you're not strong. You're weak as fuck. Like the reality is you don't have the courage to expose it to another man. And then once you do expose it, you actually get the freedom of being like, oh, it's done. It's over.
And I feel like when you expose it with other people, it kind of like it doesn't lessen, but then you realize like I'm not like other men are like, oh yeah, man, I've done that too before, right? Or
Yeah, like we've all screwed stuff up.
like yeah, so you can like you relate and then you feel like, oh, like I'm actually not alone and I can actually get through this. And
Yeah, so let me give an example. Um, 5 years ago or something, I had a brief affair. Like went to the wrong place, what shouldn't have been there, and shit happened.
not with me.
No, this was before we were married. And so when that happened, it was like, you're kind of like confused a little bit, like, what do I do? Like, like, do you just tell people or whatever? And I was like, no, I can't. It would destroy everybody. Like it would destroy my kids and like whatever. It's kind of like this is shit, what did I do? And then kind of come to this conclusion of like, maybe I should just like never say anything and just, it'll just be what it is until I die, whatever. But that's a very lonely and dark place to exist. But then it's like, no, it needs to come out, right? The courage for it to come out means overcoming all the embarrassment and everything, the fear of losing your wife, losing your kids, losing your business, losing your money, and all these different things will keep you stuck, right? Like, because it'll hold you back. Well, what if this happens? What if that happens? But you just internally feel like shit. Like there's just a darkness in your heart that's just not worth it. And I'm speaking from experience. And so as I'm trying to figure out how, like, that, I can't just bury this. It's so unfulfilling that it's just not worth it. It's just absolute darkness. And trying to find the right time. And there were some times where I was even like, okay, that I need to just get this done. Then something would happen and stop it. And it's like, why is this not why like, and for me, it was like I was about to like I'm just screwed. I'm just gonna expose it right now. Like if I lose everything, I lose everything. It is what it is. And then something would happen where I was like, come on, God, I thought I needed to expose this. And finally I got to the point where two or three times it's happened. I got to the point where I'm like, all right, if you want it to come out, it's going to come out. It is what it is. But fine. I'm going to try not to worry about it, but it still like haunts the back of your mind because it's like, how long before you, before it comes out, not on my terms? Like, what if the other person just decided to like say screw it and they come out with it and then talk about me and now I'm really like, which is more embarrassing, like obviously the one. And there's things in business that people don't want to talk about. There's things I've done day to day sometimes where I'm like, oh, man, I really don't want to. But inside my group of men, like it's just like if I feel uneasy or embarrassed about something, I just talk about it. I just expose it because as soon as the right time came and I revealed what had happened, I said this is what happened and everything else, and a lot of shit kind of flew up in the air. And it wasn't really because of that; it was because of other things. But it was used as the reason for a divorce and everything else. My wife, not at the time, not knowing anything about it, was already trying to force a hand because I changed the rules. I was like, no, we're going to show up this way. We're just going to expose everything. And I was like, it's not worth living. It's not worth living in a way with hidden secrets. And if you go back to one of the very first podcasts, I talk about a business failure that we had, just exposed it, just said, hey, this is what happened. Here's the things. This is where I screwed up. This is what happened here. This is what I did about it, whatever. And when I started telling her that I was going to expose that, she got really crazy. Like she was too embarrassed, didn't have the courage to just face it and deal with it. And so she was already threatening divorce, had already kind of picked out the guy. And then she asked me the question, have you ever cheated? And I said, yes, this is what happened. And then it was fine for like 24 hours until she told the guy. And then the guy said, well, you're supposed to be with me. And then she said, okay, and ran off, to kind of hide from the exposure of everywhere we'd fucked up. She did not want to talk about it. And I was like, I don't care. Like, I'd rather be honest. And what happens on the other side of this is no one, nothing, anything can control me. So before, there was always this fear of if you do this, how long before the other woman says something and takes you out? Right? Like if I were to ever be political at something, that's got, what are you going to do about it? Because she could just come out and say this happened, blah blah blah, and it destroys credibility, right? So you never want to go into that situation of doing that. If I were to build a big, massive, multi-million-dollar company, and then this chick wants significance to say she was part of something, now exposed, could destroy everything, reputation. So there's that weight always hanging in there. Whereas like now that it's exposed and it's just open, one, it shows strength because it takes a lot of freaking courage to do it. The way I handled it, I've been more complimented about how I've handled it than I was like told I was wrong. No, in fact, the only person that has even remotely or slightly been attacking about it was her, not then, but later like 4 weeks later when she started grabbing for money. Other than that, everybody has been very much like, man, I respect you for just coming out and just saying it.
Well, yeah, because I think like we all make mistakes and we all make choices that we're not like proud of.
Mhm.
But when you make the choice or make a mistake and then you try to hide behind it and you don't expose it, like then when you get trapped in a lie that will eat at you and
And
eat at you
kind of hold you back.
and hold you back. And so to just say like, hey, like I'm not perfect. I'm doing the best I can with what I know. I'm not perfect, but I'm doing my best and I want to get better. Like I want to be better, right?
Yeah.
When you're talking about all this, it makes me just think of like when I was drinking all the time. Like I was definitely hiding
Mm.
that. And on the outside I was projecting an image of like I'm perfect or nothing is wrong, right? But you could tell if you really looked, right?
Yeah.
Like, but I thought I was doing the best I could with what I knew. And once I finally was like, I'm actually not okay. And that was the first time when I threw my hands up in the air and, submitted to not necessarily God at the time, but just like open to receiving help
Mhm.
from somebody that I thought could help me.
Yeah.
And they did. But it was like, just letting go and being like, you know what? I'm actually not perfect. I'm actually struggling and hurting really bad and I need help.
Yeah.
And then it's like, then but it's like that exposure and that freedom now kind of like puts you on a new path of like healing, right?
Yeah. And no more pressure. Like the freedom when they say when they say the truth will set you free, like when you have nothing to hide, you have freedom to say, to do anything. And by then, if you're at that point, it means you have built up the courage to follow through with that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an impressive place to be. So that's, when I'm working with my clients and we're building and doing these things, that is the objective, is not necessarily to go in and do everything at once, but to get to this place where you can be free and you can have all this courage. And also a lot of times when I'm talking about this, it's like, I mean, guys will get so messed up over a bad business decision, right? Like maybe they bought something or put their money somewhere and they lost it all and they don't want to tell anyone, or that they can't afford to pay a bill, and then they get like all stubborn about receiving any kind of help. Like I'll figure it out, or they're inside their relationship. It's a complete disaster, but they're not showing it on the outside. And his wife is angry about to leave him, or maybe she caught him jerking off, and he's embarrassed about it, and it's like these things that like are very common in the world, but no one's talking about them. And they don't have the courage to expose them and be like, yeah, I did it. Okay, it is what it is. I mean, I still don't like talking about the fact that I cheated. I don't like talking about that I had an addiction to porn and masturbation forever. It's still kind of embarrassing, but the truth is, it's something that I'm not alone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a very prevalent thing that's happening. And even though I've kind of learned how to like overcome it and figured out on all these different pieces, there's still this part that says, oh, well, now that you're the example and now you're coaching other people, if you mess up once, now you're a hypocrite. It's like, no, I can just pretty much expect to like potentially mess up again, because the temptation never leaves. Or what happens is you get busy and then you do something stupid. Like you actually make a mistake. It's an accident. I'm not talking about cheating. That's not an accident. I'm talking about doing something like, um, it could be like breaking something, accidentally being careless and breaking something and being like, shit, I don't want to tell my wife about this. You know, I mean, just something simple could could come up. Like I just don't want to talk to her about it. Or or let's say financially things are tight. Like let's say I made a mistake financially and I don't know how I'm going to pay the rent. I don't want to talk to my wife about it. If I don't, I'm kind of screwed. I mean, if I can solve the problem, great. But where do I go? Like, I don't want to freak her out at the same time, because chances are I could probably figure it out anyway, if because that's how I am. But I have a group of guys that I go to every week, and I'm like, here's everything that's showing up right now that's a problem. And some guys will go years without, like, let's say they're an alcoholic. They go a year, no drinking, and then they have a drink. And it's just like, okay,
Whoops.
like, all right, what's next?
Mhm.
Like, obviously, if you start becoming an alcoholic again, we're gonna at some point, have some kind of intervention or something. But the reality is we're pushing ourselves to new high levels of struggle and like challenges. And when you get under that kind of pressure again, do you know what comes back first? The old methods of dealing with it,
Mhm.
the easiest ones, which is in private, isolated, and then so I'm just gonna kind of finish with this. If you think you can do it alone, you're full of shit.
This is why I say that like it's important to have a group or like you have because and I like to use the word wobble like because if you
I'm
wobble,
going to.
which you're going to,
Yeah.
it's you need a place to land that can help you wobble back onto the right,
Mm,
path, the path that you want to be on, the standards that you set for yourself, right? Like we all wobble a little bit, but some of us get stuck in the wobble when we're trying to do it alone and we don't know how to get out of it. Whereas if you have a place to land and a brotherhood or people to lean on, you wobble less, but it's easier to get back onto the
yeah.
path, right? And so I know I have a question though, I
Uh,
think.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me just say, so what happens a lot of times when men typically wake the fuck up and realize doing this alone is wrong, which is what I realized, was like, okay, I tried. I wound up in the darkest place ever. My body's falling apart. I've just made one of the worst mistakes ever you could make in a relationship. Um, I I want to burn it all down. Like I'm rage. My short-term memory shot. Like this is where I'm at. And I threw up my hands and said, "Okay, God, it's your turn. Smash me if you're going to, whatever. But I can't do this alone." And then I slowly started to find different things, and this group was one of the things I found to get there. And so now I help other people do this very similar thing in a different way. But it's very much, it's like almost like a middle ground. Most people can't afford what I do, just not in the realm for them right now. And so I create a somewhere in the middle where people can afford to actually get the dramatic changes that can feel not judged inside of a space, straight up, just like here's the facts of what it is. Okay, now what are we going to do forward? So with that, I'm going to say basically like there's the line, and eventually working too much, you get like trying to do everything. Eventually the body deteriorates and everything starts to crash, and the ramp starts to go down. It's like the graph starts to fall down and you don't know how to catch it. And it just keeps going down. And then pretty soon you just want to burn it all to the ground and give up. And so you can just maybe hopefully start back at zero and go do something. And so it's doing this and doing this. So the let's say the alcoholic or workaholic or sexaholic or whatever is going like this. I was probably the workaholic and the sexaholic because of the porn and masturbation stuff, and then the bad food and working, just running myself in the dirt. Okay. Doing this. And I'm just like, I can't do this. So I had to start pulling back somewhere. So I slowed down a little bit of the work. I found the right thing to fix my health and actually got certified in it. So I help my clients with that too. But you kind of get to a middle ground. And then we get these guys that are like these aholics, and then they stop. And right there, they're at a middle ground. The second they stop, they're at a middle ground. And then they start climbing, climbing. And then they make a mistake and they go, doo-doo. If it's just one mistake, it's just like a little, doo-doo, but they're still heading up. So if you zoom out far enough, one mistake is nothing to be embarrassed about. It's just something to own, to say the temptation is still there.
And that's the wobble. The wobble.
Yep. So it's like, okay, what do I do next? But it's so important that you have the community or the group around you, which is the space that we hold for our clients, that okay, this is what happened. All right, what do you think about it? Like, let's just expose it first. We can figure it out later. Don't worry about it. What are you actually going for? Do you know why this thing happened yet? You may not know. No, I don't know why. Whatever. Okay, fine, no problem. I know what to do.
Mhm.
Like, just thank you for the exposure. Thank you for showing it. Thank you for having the humility to do it. I'll help. Let's go.
Yeah.
And it's that easy.
Sometimes the wobble is actually not a wobble because it's needed to put you on the right, you know, it's needed to show you something or move you into a different direction.
Yeah, I mean, I was on the downward spiral, right? And the cheating is what flipped everything, actually. It was, I'm not saying it was right. I'm just saying it was the thing that turned everything around where I said, I am not the person that I know that I am.
Right.
Like this is so outside of my character. And I'm not judging anybody that's like, you know, there's plenty of guys out there that have got like perpetual cheaters, multiple women, prostitutes, everything else. We deal with those too. Okay, like it, and they might still have issues and struggles with it. That's their challenge. It is like fine. There's different ways of handling different situations. Just trust that God has a path. And my path was through a path of evil that led me back to the better path. But that was the turning point where I went, shit. And it woke me up and I changed and I made permanent changes and have been doing better in my life than I've ever done before. So don't think that your failures and everything else don't have a purpose that can be can be somewhat in a way respected and said, okay, this is where we're at. Where are we going to go? Let's fucking do it. So
Awesome.
you had another question?
Yeah, I did, but I feel like this question might lead us onto a new path of like that could lead into a lot of discussion, and I feel like we don't necessarily have time for it right now.
Ask the question and maybe we'll answer it next time.
Okay, well, I wanted to ask you because like, where'd my post go? In my post, I said that, well, I see so many relationships end because of a man's unwillingness to submit and accept outside leadership or guidance. And I just wanted to talk or like see what you have to say kind of about that, where it's like, I do see so many women that come to me and they wish that their man would either do like a hire a coach. They want like so many women come to me and they say, I want my husband or whatever to talk to Mac. Right. But like he won't. Right. Or
Yeah.
a lot of women want their men to do like some sort of marriage counseling with them or therapy or something like
So
that. Right.
yeah, let me answer that real quick and maybe we'll go into that more later. First off, counseling and therapy is not a good place to be. I'm just going to tell you that right now. It's actually one of the worst places because what you're going to do is play mom and dad, like little kid putting mom and dad against each other, like a divorced mom and dad. So what the counselor becomes is a mediator, and you're going, well, he did this, and he's like, well, she did this, and it doesn't work. It'll actually tear you apart further. The reality of the scenario is, one, as a woman, you need to get honest with how you're communicating your feelings. I can help you with that. However, the man has to be the lead. At some point, the man has to step up. This is a requirement. So, man, if you think it's her problem, no, it's not. She will follow you if you lead her. Period. End of story. All the shit she brings you, there's ways to handle that. There's ways to understand, like most of the things she's bringing you, you do not need to respond to. You can just let her say her stuff and be like, okay.
Right. But I feel like that when we're asking for you guys to like come to the counseling or do the therapy or hire the coach or I want him to talk to you but he refuses, right? Like that I feel like um just the simple act of doing it regardless of like any type of outcome um would would give the woman so much certainty, which is what she's needing. And so when I'm saying like, this is like, I say that you going and doing what you do and you participating with
Yeah.
this group gives me certainty in your ability to like, no, it gives me certainty because you are like what's the words? Like
Well,
it
what,
gives me certainty because you don't have all the because you don't know it all, and you are like submitted to something bigger than you, which gives me certainty where I'm able to relax and like relax into your leadership.
well, I'm always seeking for something more. And because I'm always growing, that you can trust that you're going to have some more to look forward to consistently.
Right, because if we were having problems and I was like, well, I know this guy, his name's Mac, and like I really think you should talk to him. You telling me no leaves me still in the land of like
Well, so,
uncertainty.
so
But if
to,
you were to do it, I feel like it would give me a sense of
here's,
like,
then I'll speak to the guys on this.
yeah,
If,
speak. I'm
if your wife says, I'd really like it if you talk to so-and-so, and you say, no, thanks, what you've actually told her is, I don't give two shits about you and your feelings.
that's what it feels like.
That's what it
Yes.
feels like. So just honestly, just doing the act of saying, okay, fine, let me think about it. Like that's the first, that's a step. I would actually suggest stopping for a minute and being like, well, that's an interesting thing for you to bring to me. So if you don't mind telling me, what do you think, like, what are your feelings that are leading you to think that you want me to do something different?
Well, I'll say I feel like she's not actually trying to change you, which what we're seeking is just that certainty.
Yeah.
And that gives us that.
Just, okay. Let me give a little different look to this. If you come to me and you say, my wife told me that, I don't know, there's problems. And my wife said, I really wish you would talk to Mac. Right? Like, okay, that's all you need to tell me. I know enough about her to know what we're going to do next. Okay. Like I may not know your particular situation, but we can find out. Most of the time, I'm not going to side with her. I'm going to look at you and say, okay, this is just simply happening because you're not leading your wife. And let me show you how to lead her. Let me explain to you why she's having these thoughts, why she's doing these things. And I can actually help you understand what's happening inside your relationship and then show you how to move forward with it. And then guess what? You start getting more of what you want. Like she will want more sex with you, she will respect you, all those different things. I'm not looking to come in and say, here's everything you're doing wrong. There's things that need to be done. And that's one of the things about humility. Like my wife knows that I have the humility to understand sometimes I'm going to do shit wrong. And if I know that, we know we can fix it.
Mhm.
And there's sometimes when it may not have anything to do with me and there's problems or whatever. Like our relationship, like we do pretty dang good, but it's not something where every day we're just super happy and go lucky. We have emotional struggles too. We have old programming that makes us think crazy shit sometimes, that we question things in our head and we're like, wait a minute, what's happening? What's this? What does she love me? Does he love me? Does what all, like we still deal with all these different things. We're not trying to paint a picture of like fantasy land. It's just the fact that I've learned very well on how to meet her needs, and she's learned very well how to meet my needs. And we actually put effort into those spaces. In
Mhm.
effect, we don't have as many problems. So we wisely invest into ourselves so that we know how to invest into the other so that we become one. And when we are one, we are elevated.
And it makes me feel really good, and like it makes me like when you invest in yourself, it makes me feel safer to like invest into you.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yep. And one thing I do not do is I do not look to her as like, well, if you give me this, I'll give you that. Nope, won't do it. I just go out, I do my thing, and I just give to her. Because as far as I'm concerned, God gave me her, so I'm already blessed. I don't need anything else. So, that you can frame it how you want, but understand this. If you're a guy, maybe you're seeing this and maybe you want to reach out, you just reach out. Like we just have a conversation and going, okay, where are you at? What do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish? Remember, focus on what you want instead of the shit you're dealing with right now. If you're looking at, well, I don't know, or I'll be embarrassed, or about, no, just forget it. If you want to have an amazing relationship, if you want to have more sex, if you want to make more money, if you want to have a better body, if you want to crush something, if you want, like think about that and then have a conversation with me and then tell me all the shit that's happening of you can tell me what's not happening or whatever. Cause what your mind is going to often do is be like, well, I don't want to fucking talk to another guy. I don't want to. Well, okay, great. But do you want an amazing relationship? If you don't, you should probably just tell her that and then she can divorce your ass and move the fuck on. But if you do and you want to get fucked all the time and you both want to look smoking hot, to yourselves or however you are, like there's a way to all of this. I don't care how obese someone is to be able to get them into a place of like loving who they are. It may not be six pack, but it could be healthy, right? Like let's just get healthy. It might be, you're completely dead broke and you want to be broke, or you have a little money but you want to hit the next, you want to add a zero to your paycheck, like whatever that is, there is a way to get there. There is a function of a way to get there, but you have to ask. But if you focus on like being embarrassed, or I don't want to talk to somebody, or I don't want to do that, or I'll figure it out myself, that's like, kind of the wrong way to think about it. But if you're thinking, I want this to achieve this thing, how do I get there? I don't know, but I could talk to Mac. Now we can move, right? Like now we can have a conversation. I can also pull in resources. And I coach couples sometimes separate from each other in different ways. It's like, no, you work on you and you work on you. And if she brings me, well, he's doing blah, 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 blah. I'm like, shut the fuck up. This is what you're doing. Look at what you did. Stop with that. Let's change this. Let's look at this. I'll deal with him on his day, his time. You deal with you. And what you're creating right now is a story. Stop. Okay. I deal with that all the time. Other times I'm like, okay, what you're doing is right, but what you're saying is wrong. Let me help you communicate to him your feelings. And when you clearly communicate your feelings to him, he will understand. And then he will do things differently because you're being vulnerable. And then with the guy, I'm like, she's doing blah, 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 blah. Shut the fuck up, man. Like, let me show you what she's actually doing. What she's actually doing is she thinks this way, she feels this way, then it happens, and then she says this, but it means this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get it? Well, why doesn't she say that? Because she's a woman. like, there's a difference.
We try to do it, like we try really hard,
Yeah,
but
they
sometimes
try,
the
but
words just don't come out the way that like, because sometimes we don't even know how to express what we're seeking.
yeah, you don't.
Yeah, I know. We try.
And that's why God tells you love your wife. Don't worry about it. Like it'll like if you just hold space and love her, you don't need the answer. You can just love her. And she can try and attempt and everything else, and eventually you can pull the right information, and eventually she'll feel safe enough to tell you those internal feelings that she's dealing with. And once she finally does, then you can be like, oh no, here's the truth. And she's like, really? That's it? I just went through hell trying to get to here. Yeah, I know. Like, I guess just life.
Mhm.
They say women can handle 7 times more stress than men.
Hmm.
So they say. I say women create 7 times more stress in their minds than men. I'm just saying stories.
Mhm.
Stories are horrible. Or men just check out. They're like, okay, there's this, whatever, facts, whatever. But you can't have that men logic, women feel totally different. You need to understand the other so that it works. Um, Never going to be easy. It's just not. It's not designed to be. It would be boring if it was. Honestly, like if everything was perfect, I'd be bored.
But I just say like you said it's never going to be easy, but I say like it just gets to be fun.
It gets to be fun.
It does get to be fun because it's like, oh, what's going on in there?
But well, I'll put it. I guess I should say this: growth is not always easy. It's like going to the gym. If you really want growth, you got to work really hard. And initially, it's not easy, but you can get in the groove of it, and then you gain. And then once you receive all the rewards of it, it's very easy to maintain.
Mhm.
And then there's just little blips sometimes of understanding you're doing this, and then sometimes I push myself so hard that I'm not understanding, and then I have to be like, pull back a little bit, you need to be more understanding, so I'm balancing myself while I'm balancing her. But the cool thing is God gave me the ability to do this. God gave all men the ability to handle these things with their wives, right? Like it's on the man. It's not on the woman. You can blame her all you want. It's not on her. When you lead, she will follow or she will disappear, and you'll find something better. But the reality is there is a very specific way to do this. And if you think you can do it alone, you're full of shit. Never once have I seen a man do it alone. Never once in my entire life have I seen a man pull off success in a relationship that was like growth and everything else alone. It is always done with an outside resource for growth. That's how it's done. And some people will go to their church and it's like, okay, well, let me ask you this. What happened if you went into church and told them all of your sins for the all of eternity? Have you ever done that? Have you ever walked into your men's group or whatever and been like, here's all the shit I've done. Here's how fucked up my week is. Like here's all the negative, like the crazy ass thoughts that I had of doing this, and here's how angry I am with my wife and blah 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 blah. No, that doesn't happen, does it? Happens in my church group, my men's group. We call it a church group, but just a brotherhood. That's where it happens. Because you're like you go into church and you feel judged, and so you withhold the information that you need to get the help. You're not going to get it, not at this level. You can get, I mean, you can get help from church and stuff. You can go to seminars and get some new thoughts and new ideas, which is help. Okay, but remember this: if your wife asks you to do something, you might reframe it to say, okay, obviously there's something going on in your mind right now, which I'd really like to know the truth behind that. But since now that you've said it, if I don't do something about it, you're going to think I don't care about you. So I'm going to prove that I care about you and I'll have a conversation. And then just go have the conversation. And then if you have a conversation with me and she's like, well, what'd you talk about? Here's my advice. Not your business. Not yet. We're not going to talk about it. She does not need to know what we have a conversation about. And I can explain why that is as we have the conversation and how she stays out of it. You work on you. She'll be all like, well, what's going on? What's happening? Well, I don't know about this, and then she'll try to tell me bullshit probably until there becomes it at first has to be a disruption and then a balance. And then we'll do it again, do it again, do it again. And then like amazing things happen through this process, but it does take time to get through it. Anything else?
That was great.
Okay.
That was so good. You're so good.
Hmm.
Yep. So, okay, so is that it?
Yeah, I mean, just please understand that God has blessed me through all of my struggles of, first relationship getting cheated on and just messed me up, right? Been the drinker, been the smoker, been the all but prostitute myself, like not paid, but like just stupid shit, addicted forever to porn and masturbation, had the affair, been left, walked out on, cheated on, like these different things. So please understand that like I've been very blessed to learn what I know. I believe that I went through a path to learn these things so that I can help more people. And as you have also been through your journey of, the alcoholism and everything else, and then finding a way to be a good mom and to help people and then redo a relationship and get very clear and be able to stay confident in your own way. Like we've been on a path of learning and education. It's like we've been blessed by God to know what we know. And we believe that the reason that is so that we can serve more people, that we can actually bring more people closer to each other, closer to God, closer to joy and happiness. And so that is our kind of like our mission and our call, that I want you to understand that if you are reaching out for a conversation with one of us, our objective is to get you what you want. So that becomes the main focus. So just consider, if I want this thing that I say I want, whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is, but I just want what? Just ask yourself that. I just want this. Make it a positive. If you're saying, I just don't want to deal with her shit, that's not a positive. I just want to be happy. I just want to have peace. Like there's still kind of negatives in there, but I just want joy. I just want to have fun. I just want to, like whatever it is, doesn't matter, even if it is negative. If you want something, just have a conversation. Like let me let me give back what God has given me and like the knowledge and the information. Let me hand it to you too. So, all right, with that, we're gonna get out of here. we'll see you guys next week. Like we've said before, you can contact us probably on Facebook is one of the easiest things. We do one-on-one coaching, group coaching, high level group coaching, and there's a private women's only call that Jen does. There's a men's only call that I do. If you're interested in any of it or just having a conversation, you can just reach out and say, hey, I need to talk to you. Maybe just start there and I'll set it up. Just like can I get a consultation with you, whatever.
And it's Mac Grant,
Mhm.
MacGrant, right?
Yep. Yep.
And Jen Lockhart Grant on Facebook.
Yep. So,
Yay.
all right. We'll see you.